Well, welcome back. We had some technical difficulties yesterday and we're working on getting them fixed. So we'd like to welcome you to the Hive. Hopefully it's working today and we can do some live chat if you want to chat. But you got to chat on the YouTube because like the Facebook, I think I can't see that. Hopefully this is being broadcast on Facebook also. So we had some technical difficulties. I was really surprised because I upgraded my live stream to a really good system and I thought there'd be no problems. And ever since I upgraded, there was problems. And I went ahead and contacted the technical department and they said they're working on it. I saw them today working on live stream. So I apologize about yesterday's screw up. I was really upset. Honestly, we had an amazing yesterday. It was really fantastic. Hopefully you can hear me today. And we had Wilbur Hawk, the son of the legend Greg Hancock, on the show. And Wilbur, a young 15-year-old writer, and he's really amazing. And the kid is really brilliant. He's really had one of my best shows with Wilbur. We talked Speedway, hardcore. It was really great. And the whole show got destroyed because my voice was terrible. I sounded like an alien from another world, and I was really sad. All day long I was bummed out. I was really like crying all day yesterday. I had to go to the beach and I made a blog on the beach because I was so sad, and I was like, I'm going to do a blog today. So I did that, and hopefully we can have Wilbur on again for part 2. We're going to have another race with Wilbur Hancock if he comes to the show. But first, we're working on those technical difficulties with the live stream. I have no idea. I'm a motorcycle rider. I'm not a computer geek. So I don't know these, and I apologize to everyone about yesterday's show. I felt so bad, and it was just horrible. So I certainly didn't do that on purpose, and we're fixing that. So please stay with us. And so we're going to talk about some racing today. Actually, we're going to talk about the 1978 World Championship Speedway Qualifier. I noticed when the promoter, Steve Evans, he listed all the champions of the World Qualifiers. He went up to 1978, and then he didn't have anything listed for 78. And I said, there was a champion in 78, and I'm not exactly sure who was the old champion because I got injured and I was in the hospital kind of. But there was a 1978 World Qualifier, and I was there. So we're going to talk about that right now. And it was at the Santa Ana Bowl. It was the Fred Kelly Stadium, not Fred Kelly, it was the Eddie West Stadium, Fred Kelly, that's in Orange. And it was the Eddie West Field over by the Orange County Courthouse, the jail, the Orange County Jail. And it was a big event. It was a 3-series event. It wasn't just like one night like they had in Paris last week or so. This is a 3-night event, so it was like a lot of racing and stuff. It was really hard to win that event. And the first night was at the Santa Ana Bowl. They actually raced a quarter-mile track around a football field. It was a really fast track. It was probably one of the first long tracks in the modern era, and I loved it. I had my long JAP, and it was like a chugger, and chug, 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 and it was fast. So that JAP worked really good. And actually, I got to think about it, and I was the last D1 rider to ride a JAP competitively against top levels. There was other JAP riders, but I was the last JAP rider, first division, racing the Top Guns. So that was pretty cool. I never thought about that. I got to talk about that in a future vlog. But anyways, I thought, God, I'm the last guy who rode that JAP and was like competing against these top dogs. So that was pretty cool. And so anyways, this is the program cover of the 1978 World Qualifier. And that was me on the program cover with the star helmet. That was the Bumblebee right there on the World Qualifier. The World Qualifier at Santa Ana Bowl. It was a really great event. I made the program cover. Not only was I racing, but I was on the cover. So people say, "Oh, you're no good. Nobody, you're a joker." And so I said, "Oh yeah, let's see if I'm a joker or not." There I am. I made the cover. That was pretty cool. I had a good season that year. I was the top point getter, and I was like a 50 or 60 line rider at that time. So I was getting good. And I will tell you the story of what happened in my career. I was supposed to be a United States champion, and that didn't happen. But I had a lot of fun, and I love Speedway so much, and always loved Speedway. But so I was on this program cover, and it was they had these final round things, I guess it was, and they had the top riders advance, I guess, for a mid-November showdown. It was like kind of like today, but it was like they went ahead and they sort of had a three-part series. And so let's see, I'm going to go ahead and look through this program real quick here. Let's go ahead and take a look at it. There was a lot of riders in this event, and let me just talk about the riders. There was like Northern California Speedway champ, Rich McMurray was in it. They had the current national champion, Mike Bast. Do you remember Michael the Fast Bast? He was a United States champion back about that time. He won everything in those days. And he was in the World Qualifier event. And we had the future United States, I think 2 or 3 United States championships, at least 2 I know of, but maybe more. Mike Faria, flying Mike Faria. Do you know who that guy is? He was racing forever. And Mike was really fast. I talked with the guy who actually introduced Mike to Speedway, and it was a really cool story. He's one of my watchers here, Jerry from Northern California. He loves watching the show, so we go ahead and we like and thank you for watching the show, Jerry. We have like a bunch of followers, and you're one of them, so thank you so much. So we had Flying Mike Freya, who Jerry introduced to the sport. And we had Rolling Rich McMurray. Do you know Rich McMurray? He was the Northern California champion at the time, and he passed away. Rest in peace, Rich McMurray. He was in that. He was a good rider. That guy was good. And then we had a cowboy. Do you remember the cowboy, John Cook? John was an amazing rider. He went to England and all over Europe and was just a top level rider. He went ahead and really was a great rider. And this was John Cook in the early days. We raced John Cook at the AMA qualifier, and it was really great. And we had rest in peace, another rest in peace, Denny Pyatt. He had passed away a couple years later in England racing Speedway on one of the Speedway teams, and he had a horrible crash and passed away racing Speedway, and it was a very beloved rider, and we all miss Denny Pyatt. Rest in peace, Denny. And then we had, in that event, we had Wild Bill Cody. Wild Bill Cody! Wild Bill Cody was cool. Do you know him? He will sell you a motorcycle any day of the week. And he has a lot of motorcycle parts. Bill Cody's a cool guy, and he's a fixture of Speedway for many, many years. Bill Cody was racing when he was an older whippersnapper before his retirement. And then we had Sean Mad Dog McConnell. Sean McConnell has been racing for a long time. Him and Bobby Schwartz, I think, are the oldest United States Speedway riders currently. I'm not sure which one is older, Bobby or Sean, but I think Bobby is maybe a little older. I'm pretty sure Bobby is the oldest Speedway rider. Because I remember that, because actually I sat next to Bobby's brother. I don't know if any of you know who Bobby's brother. Bobby had a brother. I sat next to this guy when I was a young boy at the Speedway races at Costa Mesa, and he said he was a makeup artist in Hollywood or something like that. He did hair or did makeup. And I said, "Oh, do you have a favorite rider?" And he said, "Yeah, I do, my brother." And I said, "Your brother? Who is your brother?" And he said, "Bobby Boogaloo Schwartz." But he was the Bumblebee, I think, back then. But Bobby Schwartz, brother, we got to find out what happened to this guy, because I was always going to ask Bobby, like, what happened to your brother? Because I met this guy, and he swore up and down he was Bobby Schwartz's brother. He was a Hollywood makeup artist or something, and I hope he's still around. But I met this guy, and he said he was Bobby Schwartz's brother. And that was cool. Like, wow, that's when Bobby Schwartz was like first year Speedway. You know, he wasn't like the legend he became. So he was a young rider at the time. And then, like I say, we had Sean Mad Dog McConnell. He's been riding for a long time. He raced in Europe, and he's always competing on the circuit. This year he didn't ride, so maybe he just took the year off because of the COVID thing, because there wasn't that many races. So, and then we had Dave DeTemple. He was a good rider years ago. And then we had Brian Yarrow's father, his papa, Dwayne Yarrow. He was a good rider. That's where Brian got his talent from, his papa. And I guess he had broke his leg ice racing, and he had some problems with his leg later on. But when Dwayne was younger, that guy could ride a Speedway bike. He was a Northern California Speedway star, Dwayne Yarrow, and he was good. So I raced Dwayne, and that guy could ride. And then one of the last guys I have on Dave Faria, Mike Faria's brother. I don't know if he's older or young, but he's the brother, Dave Faria. So we went ahead and we raced that night, and it was really cool. It was actually in September. What day was that? It was September 16th, 1978. It was the World Qualifier. And I have this old program. It's really old. It's like falling apart. And we have like Belial's Restaurant. I did some blogs on Paul Belial. His parents had a restaurant for many years over in Garden Grove near Anaheim. Open 24 hours. So if you want some catfish, country, old-fashioned cooking, you go to Belial's Restaurant in Garden Grove. We all liked Belial's Restaurant, even though I've never been there. I was hoping Paul would take me, but I guess they're saving money or something. He didn't want to take me. So we have Belial's Restaurant as a sponsor of the program here. And I went ahead and I sponsored the program too. I went ahead and thanked Brian the Bumblebee, and I was thanking Jerry Fairchild in there, and Louis Guth, the Roshios, John and Janine. They both passed away since, and just a bunch of people, some neighbors and some tuners and some people. Bill Herbert. Do you know Bill Herbert? He he actually made my leathers, Vera's leathers. See, Vera, they have really great leathers called Vera's, and Bill Herbert actually made those leathers. He was a Division II rider with a JP also. And then we had Ernie Rocio. Ernie Rocio, the nephew of, or something like that, a cousin of Ernie Rocio, who died in 1952 on a Speedway accident in England. And this was Johnny's son, Ernie. And then we had Bob Reinking, and we had a few other people. We had Gil Armas. I think Gil has passed away since then. Rest in peace, Gil. So this was the program, and I was thanking everybody. And Fairchild, let's see if we find Jerry Fairchild on here. Jerry Fairchild, I think he's over here somewhere. I put him in a bad section. He probably got mad at me. Louis Kasuth. Jerry and Ida Fairchild. Jerry Fairchild was my mechanic, and that guy was rocking. He was good. He was one of the Speedway mechanics in the world. I mean, the guy started mechanic in like 1920 or something, and he was an old guy and he was good. I mean, he could fix your motorcycle motorcycle blindfolded, and he would make it fast. And my motorcycle was fast. Actually, I wasn't really a very good rider, to be honest with you, but I had a fast motorcycle because of Jerry. So that was my key to success. And then we have an ad over here from Vera's Leathers. Vera's did lots of promotion for different riders. Like there's Vera's Leathers. Like there's Bill. Remember Bill Herbert that I talked about? He was a Division II rider. And then we have other riders he sponsored. There's number one, Mike Bass. Mike Bass wore the Vera's Leathers. And we had Jim, the animal fishback. Do you know the animal? He accepted my friend request. And we're friends on Facebook. Jim the animal. He was a scary dude. And then, let's see, who did we have? We had the Bumblebee. I am on the cover of the program with my helmet. I had the Vera's Leathers. They made me a great, I wore white leathers at the time. And I had that big star painted by Bob Ranking. He went ahead and painted this helmet blue and yellow, and it was this white thing. And I was skinny back then, so I could get away wearing a white uniform. But now I need black. I need black because I'm a very big guy. I was a little twerp. That was me when I was younger. And that's me on the program cover. See the star on the helmet? I don't know if you can see that, but the star on the helmet here. And I always thought that was cool. Like that was my best program cover to be on the, there's my star on the helmet there, and there's my white uniform and my Vera's Leathers. See my star? It was cool. And this was my favorite program cover. I mean, how many times are you going to be on the cover of the World Speedway Championship Qualifier program? Not many people do that, and I did that, so thumbs up for that one. That was cool. And then they had the program. We'll talk about the program, the World Qualifier program. I was in that race with a bunch of other guys. And then, let's see here. We have the Wheelworks. I used to go to these guys in Garden Grove. Do you know the Wheelworks? They were over in Garden Grove. They actually went ahead and worked on all my wheels and all my rims when I was a kid. I don't think they're in business anymore. They probably like died or something. But the Wheelworks was really cool. Those guys were specialized in lacing and spin balance. And they made a good balancing on my Speedway bike. So every time I needed my wheels balanced and taken care of, I went to the Wheelworks, and they were perfect. I mean, those guys made like awesome wheels spinning. Because I was talking to Wilbur Hancock yesterday, and he said every little advantage helps. And I made sure I did everything I could to beat these guys because they were good. And having a perfect wheels was definitely part of it. So that was one thing. And another cool thing here they had in this program was the motocross. They didn't call it Supercross. This was the Supercross at the Anaheim Stadium back in the day. They had motocross, but it was Supercross. They changed the name to Supercross later. Coca-Cola sponsored it at the Anaheim Stadium. That's pretty cool. So they had the Supercross advertising, and they raced it like in November back in that day. So that was all right. And then another race that I actually wore patch a couple of times was Select Vans in Anaheim, Orange, and like Stanton or something like that. They sponsored Speedway. Where was that? Stanton or something? Yeah, Stanton, Orange, and Anaheim. See, I was right. And Select Vans. They sponsored, like, they put a patch on your shoulder, and every time you won a main event, they give you like $20 or something. So I had my patch on my shoulder, Select Vans. So that was the program. Actually, the promoter, Louis Kasuth, I don't know if I can find him in here. He was like, he ran a gas station over in Brea, off of Brea Boulevard or Lambert or something like that. It was a golf gas station. And he went ahead and was married to his wife at the time. And he had a son who was a junior Speedway rider named Louis Kasuth. Do you remember Louis Kasuth? He passed passed away like a couple years ago. He was like 5 or 8 years younger than me. He was a little guy at the time, and he was a United States champion, a junior speedway rider. He was good, Louis Kasuth. He like won everything, and he went ahead and he had a little thing here. He actually divorced his wife, and he said, "Thank you to my family for their help and support." He really needed it because it was a lot of work. He was a promoter of the Santa Ana Bowl. And to a very special thank you to my wife, Carol, which he had since, he actually divorced her, I think. And then all the help, he had got some support and help through all the people. And actually the city of Santa Ana helped him out a lot because he had to convert like a football stadium into a speedway track. That probably wasn't very easy. So he went ahead and did all that stuff, and then they went ahead and had this World Qualifier. It was a one-night event at the Santa Ana Bowl. Like I said, it was September 16th, 1978. It's a long time ago. So I did a blog on this thing, and if you want to check it out, you can go to my page over there, my YouTube, and you can check out the Speedway on that. It's pretty cool. So I'm going to talk to you about my races, okay? Since I was on the program, I had 4 races. Usually in the World Championship class, they have like 5 races for like 15 points, which is really great. And this night, they had 4 races, maximum 12 points. So it was a little different than normal, which I actually didn't like. I liked more races because, you know, you have a chance to get more points. But they only had 4 races that night. So I will tell you how I did on my 4 races. Wilbur Hancock said, like, you know, "I didn't hear your name. Were you any good?" and stuff. I'm like, well, I had a couple good rides in my life, I guess. But I will tell you about that. And so anyways, I had 4 rides. I was in Heat 6 that night. And actually, I was lined up against the United States champion, Michael Bass. And I really wanted to beat Mike. I can't remember what gate. I think he had gate 1 and I had gate 3 or something. And I just had a terrible start. And Mike just, you know, he's a good gator, and he took the first place. And once Mike Bass has the lead, good luck. I mean, Mike Bass, I remember being behind Bass on that race, and I'm like, I'm going to beat Mike Bass. I'm going to maybe beat him. And I could not get that guy. And I was actually, like I say, #1 point getter at the track. So I had, you know, a couple good rides, and I could not beat Mike Bass. He just totally took me down my first heat. I was mad. I was like, dang, Mike Bass beat me. I mean, he's good. He was a national champion. See, that's the way you are when you're a racer. You get mad even when the national champion beats you. I was pissed. I was like, dang, I was mad, you know, like, but I'm like, that was Michael Bass. So it's okay, you know. Getting beat by the national champion is no, like, insult, but I was mad. So he beat me on heat number 6, and I got 2nd place in that first race. And later, I was in heat 16, and I raced a bunch of riders. I can't remember exactly where I have them here, and I beat Dave DeTemple. He got 2nd place. So I won my 2nd race, and I wanted to win my first race. So there was a possible 6 points after 2 rounds, and I had 5 points out of 6 points. So I was doing pretty good. I was like competing, you know, for like, you know, a top dog, I think at the time. So 5 out of 6 points, you know, is okay. You know, you're in the hunt there. So anyway, so actually I had the next race, which really sucked for me because I was in heat 16. Then I got put into heat 17 immediately after the heat 16. So I was like tired, and, you know, I had to change my gearing because Mike beat me, and I couldn't change my gearing because I had no time. It was like fill the gas tank up and then get back on the track again. So it kind of sucks for me to be in the very next race because I needed to work on my bike because I had some problems in heat 16. And then they threw me in heat 17 immediately after, and I had really just almost no time to like do anything but fill up the fuel and go back out again. So that sucked for me. And actually, that race, it was a race that Mike Bloom, he won. He was a surprise that night. Mike Bloom, do you remember him, the Spider-Man? And Mike won that race. And I remember I had a good year against Mike all year long. I pretty much had most success against him. And then he had a good ride, and I was shocked. So I thought for sure I was going to win that race. And Mike surprised me and probably a lot of people, and he won that race. Congratulations, Mike. That was a guy. And I'm mad you won that race. Again, I'm mad when I lost. And so I got second place, so that was good. I mean, at least I kept my points going. I had 7 points out of 9 points after 3 rounds, so I was only 2 points off of perfection. And the Cowboy, John Cook, he got third place that race. So I beat the Cowboy, and I actually had a good year against the Cowboy that year. John Cook turned out to be an amazing rider. Maybe he wasn't as good as he was later, so that could be part of it. But John Cook was in third place, and I pretty much had a good year against John Cook. And then Wild Bill Cody got fourth place. Wild Bill was kind of getting old at the time and was getting ready to retire, I think. So he was running a little bit out of gas, a little tired. He had a couple races under his belt, and he probably wanted to go fix the motorcycles and work on the bike. So Wild Bill Cody finished that heat number 17 in fourth place. So I got second place. It was all right. I wasn't real happy about it. And then I went to heat number 25 that night. That was my fourth race. And honestly, this is the weird thing. I had this program by one of the racers, and it said I got second place in the heat 25. But honestly, I remember winning that race. And so I don't know. I got a program that said I got second place. So maybe it's true, but I don't think so, because I remember winning that race. And because I remember beating this rider, and he was a good rider, and I always remember beating this rider, and that's how I remember winning that race. So maybe there was an error in the program, because I won that race, I remember. And that was my fourth race, and that was with Roland Rich McMurray. The program said I got second place to Rich McMurray, but honestly, I remember I beat that guy. So maybe it's a mistake on my part, or maybe it was a mistake on the program person's part. I'm not really sure. But I remember beating Rich McMurray and then saying to myself, he's not that good. I was a cocky little sucker. I said, he's not that good. He was really famous Northern California rider, but on my track, McMurray went down. And so I think I won that race, but the program said I didn't, but I know I won that race. And so anyways, I ended up with 9 or 10 points so either I ended up with a tie of third place or a tie for fourth place. And I'm not really sure. So I don't like to make stories up. You hear my blogs. I don't like make lies up and stuff. But I remember winning that race, and I remember saying to myself, I got tied for third place all the time until the person with the program told me, no, you got fourth place. And I go, no, because I remember getting tied for third, saying, well, that's good. I got tied for third. So I think I was tied for third for that night, which is tied for like a podium spot. We didn't have a runoff, but as far as I know. Anyways, that was a pretty good night. Third or fourth, I'm not sure, but it was a good night. I got like 9 or 10 points out of 12. So it was okay. I had a good ride. And so anyway, the winner that night was Denny. Actually, there was a tie. There was 2 riders with a perfect score. That was Denny Pyatt and Bobby Boo Schwartz. Bobby Schwartz. He was tied with a perfect score of 12 points. Denny Pyatt and Bobby Schwartz got, I think I raced, I don't know if I raced, I guess I didn't race that night. I thought I raced them, but maybe not. I don't remember seeing that. And Denny and Bobby got 12 points, and they tied for first place. So they went ahead and had a 2 or 4 lap tiebreaker, and Bobby and Denny went ahead and raced that. And Denny Pyatt won the tiebreaker from Bobby Schwartz. So it became Denny Pyatt was the winner that night of the qualifier. and Bobby Schwartz was second. So that was how it worked out. But they both tied in points with 12. And that's how that happened. And then either I tied with Mike Bloom for third place, or Mike Bloom got third place. I don't know, but I remember winning Rich McMurray. I really remember that because I always, when I raced Rich McMurray, he was in the Nationals a couple years before, and Rich had a big name, and I was like scared of Rich McMurray because he was a good rider. And I just remember saying, he wasn't that good. Like I beat his butt, and so I just remember that. Maybe I'm wrong, but who knows? But I remember beating that guy. So, so I either tied for third or fourth, but I'm not sure. But I think it was third. I think the scorekeeper didn't like me, and so they went ahead and like switched the score around a little bit. I'm not sure because that it was an unofficial scorekeeper, so it was just somebody. It was one of my competitors' moms, so maybe she went ahead and changed the program or something. He's mad, wanted her kid to do better or something. I don't know. I'm not sure, but I just remember beating Rich McMurray. So, anyways, fourth place was Mike Faria and Rich McMurray. So Rich McMurray got fourth place, and Mike Faria, flying Mike Faria, got fourth place. I either tied Mike Faria for fourth place, or I beat him, tied for third place. So that was a good night for me. Anytime you can tie or beat Mike Faria, you have a good night. So that was good. I was happy about that. And then on fifth place, we had the current United States Speedway champion, the guy who beat me the first race. I don't know. I should have beat him. That's why I said I'm mad. He got fifth place. And that was Michael Bast. And, Michael was a United States champion, and the guy is really good. And like I say, once Mike gets a start and gets first place, you're not going to beat Michael Bass. So I really needed a good start. I didn't get it. So with 8 points, we had Mike Bass, we had John Cowboy Cook, we had Dave DeTemple, and we had Dwayne Yarrow, Brian Yarrow's papa, with 8 points. They all got tied for fifth place. That was fifth place. They had 8 points. And then with 7 points, we had Wild Bill Cody. Wild Bill was getting a little old at the time, and he's a great guy. And so he got what was it, fifth place, sixth place, probably a little bit longer because there's a bunch of ties. And then we had Dave Faria with 6 points. That was the top 10 guys right there for that event. So it was an amazing event. It was really good. It was around that quarter-mile track. Like I said, it was really fast, and it was just really great racing. I like those long tracks. I should have went to Europe. I would have done pretty good on those tracks, and it was good. Larry Costa, the Speedway rider, I used to race him a long time ago, and had some good success against Larry, and he knew that I was a pretty good rider in my day. And he said, you should have gone to England, Brian. You would have been one of those guys like with the top level riders. And I'm like, yeah, maybe, who knows? But I was, developing really good at the time, and hopefully, I would have done well, but who knows? We will never know. And so anyway, so they actually had the Orange County Jail right there at the Santa Ana Stadium. And every time that I would race the whole year and the World Qualifier, all the jail inmates would like look down like, hey, and I would like wave to them like, hey, buddy. I would look up once in a while, and all these people would be on this fence looking down at the Speedway track, and that was cool. I was like, those guys have a free Speedway race, and they're in jail. That was pretty cool. I like that one. I was laughing. And so that was good. And so we actually had a 3-night event, and we had two more nights at Sacramento Fairgrounds. That they don't have the Sacramento. They have Fast Fridays now, and I don't know, Auburn or something. But they didn't have the Sacramento Fairgrounds nowadays. But back then they did. And then they had like a car demolition race the night before. They had like maybe a fair derby or something, and they had these cars, these like figure-8 crash cars, and they were crashing into each other the whole night. This was the night before the race, and then they were like dropping Bondo all over the track, and the track was really kind of rough a little bit. And it was a small track like Costa Mesa, but the track was kind of like gnarly as far as like it had a lot of holes and stuff. It was they abused it by with the cars and things like that the night before. So we had the next night at the Sacramento Fairgrounds, and like I say, the track wasn't very good with all the Bondo on the track. So remember what I just said about the Bondo, and we'll talk about that soon. But I had a good start of the night, and then I got injured in that race, and I couldn't race. So I finished the night on an injury. But the first race I had was with the Boogaloo Bobby Schwartz. Do you know Bobby Boogaloo Schwartz? He's a good rider. And back in that day, Bobby was like unbeatable. I mean, especially when he got the lead. And Bobby was a pole rider, right? And so when Bobby got the pole, you couldn't beat Bobby. I mean, Bobby is Bobby, so he's a very strong rider. And I think gate 2, and Bobby had the pole. That was good for Bobby. Or I might have had the pole, but I think I had gate 2. And the teams went up, and Bobby and I were first and second going in the turn. And I was right behind Bobby first turn. And I was kind of mad again that he beat me. And so I went ahead and just gassed it. And it was a scratch race, of course, world qualifiers, all scratch. And Bobby was leading and going into like turn 3. And I just cranked it. My bike was running really fast at night. And I just went right into Bobby, and I was like touching his like uniform, and my wheel was into his chest or his bike. And I was like, dang, you're close to Bobby Schwartz. I'm like rubbing. And then the next turn went, and I did the same thing. I'm rubbing to Bobby, and I'm like, dang, I thought I was going to crash Bobby and me, because Bobby's a good rider, and he's like solid. And I was kind of a younger guy and a little bit more like wild. And the track was a little bumpy with that Bondo. And I was riding really close to Bobby. And I was kind of nervous I was going to crash both of us and wipe Bobby out, because every turn I kept like going into Bobby and I was hitting him. I mean, I was literally on top of Bobby every turn. I think they had a good race, those spectators, because it was close. I think that was the closest I've ever ridden. I know it's the closest I've ever ridden someone. So for the whole 4 laps, I was like bumping Bobby the whole time. And finally, believe it or not, I know this sounds like a lie, but it's not, I swear. After about the 3rd lap of bumping Bobby and like pushing him, and I don't know how we didn't crash, to be honest with you, because I was riding a little crazy. And Bobby bumped over a little bit. He made one bobble, and I took off, and I went past Bobby, and then I ended up winning. I pushed Bobby off the pole. Back in those days, you could never, once Bobby got in the pole, if you went underneath Bobby, you could never push Bobby off. But the only way I did was I was hitting him. I was like, Bobby, I'm going to take you out. And then Bobby's like, oh, much. And then I ended up winning that race. So I won my first race, Bobby Schwartz. That was kind of like one of my best races, really one of my best races, because Bobby was hard to beat. And I'm not bragging or anything, but I just was riding like a teenager and a little crazy, and I got lucky and beat him. So the next race was not any easier. It was not any easier. Actually, it was very hard. And I had the current United States Speedway champion, again, Michael Bass. And Michael was on I don't know where we started, to be honest with you. I can't remember the gate position. I remember Bobby, because Bobby took the lead on me. I think he had gate 1 and I had gate 2 or 3. But with Mike, I can't remember the gate. But I just remember that I was mad because the night or 2 before, Mike beat me at Santa Ana Bowl. And I knew Mike got the lead, like, that's it. You're not going to beat Michael Bass. You're not going to beat him. If he gets the lead, forget it. He's got eyes in the back of his head. Michael Bass was an amazing champion. The guy is talented. He's won 4,000 Division I races. I think he's pretty good. And so when I raced Michael Bass that second ride, I just realized that, Brian, I just was psyched up. I was like, you got to get the gate. You got to get the gate, you know, because Mike Bass, once he gets the gate, you know, it's over. He's won. So I remember when the race started, I let the clutch go. Boom, I had first place, and Mike Bass was behind me. I don't know what happened to Mike Bass. I don't know how good he did or whatever behind me. But I just know that once Michael Bass was behind me, he was going to stay behind me. And I rode like full bore. I mean, I knew Michael Bass was like a cooker. So I just like gassed it. I was riding smooth. I had no mistakes. I don't know how I did. I think I did really well. Like the field was kind of behind me, but I'm not really sure because when I'm winning, I'm looking forward. I don't care about behind me. So I don't give a crap, you know, who's behind me. I want to win that race, and I won that race. And so I was really happy. I was like, dang, you just blew Mike. I think I beat him pretty good, but I'm not sure. But I don't think he didn't challenge me the whole race, and I didn't feel any heat or any pressure. So I think I won that race pretty handily. And so after the race, I was sitting down a little tired, and I was really happy. I'm like, no, you beat Michael Bass, because that's hard to do. And I was sitting there in a World Championship qualifier. That's hard to do. Scratch racing, that's hard to do. So I was just a 17-year-old kid, you know. I was just a young kid, still just graduated from high school or something, and maybe turning 18. And I just was sitting down in my chair, and I was kind of tired and resting after that race. And I think I told a few of the story. Michael Bass comes walking up to me, and I'm like, uh-oh, Michael Bass is going to kill me because I beat Michael Bass. And I was really scared because I was just a young kid, and Michael Bass was like 25-year-old guy or something. And I was kind of nervous because I'm thinking Michael Bass is going to like fight me or something. Right. I was thinking that, you know how kids are, they think crazy and stuff. And Michael Bass comes up to me and says, he was nice because, you know, the year before I was watching Michael Bass stands, and then now I beat him the next year, the United States champion. So I had a good ride. And Michael Bass came up to me and said, hey, Brian, what do you have in that engine? I was like, what? I said, God, Michael Bass, he called me by my first name, Brian. And he asked me, like, what's inside my engine? It's fast. And I said, Mike, it's a Jerry Fairchild engine, and it's fast. Fairchild just made my engine like smoking fast. I mean, it was a rocket ship when he got done with that. It was fast. I wasn't really that good of a rider, I think, and that's why I wanted to stay with Jerry Fairchild, because Jerry Fairchild made me fast. And, you know, he had different times later on with the strike and stuff. I wanted to stay with Jerry because he knew how to make Mike's cooking fast. And I knew that if I went to another tuner that, you know, maybe I would just be a Joe Blow. But I wanted to win, and I could win with Jerry's bike. So that was cool. Mike Bass called me by my first name and said, like, hey, I like you. And you're fast, dude. You're fast. And anytime Michael Bass comes up to you and says that, I mean, this is the legend. So a young, punky 18-year-old, 17-year-old kid has got to feel good about that one. And I did. That was one of the best compliments I think I ever got, was from Michael Bass after I had a good success against him that second race. And so, so here I was after 2 races. I think there was only 4 races in the night, and I had 6 points. And I was the leader that night. So I went up north to Sacramento, and I was one of the only guys. I don't know about the only guy, but I was definitely one of the only guys with a perfect score of 6 points. That was good. I was like, I had Shorts, I had Bass. Oh yeah, I'm gonna win this thing. You know, I'm gonna win. I'm taking it home. I'm taking the trophy home. You know. My head was good, you know. I was like, dang, you know, I'm gonna beat these guys. Like, nobody's gonna beat me, you know. Like, my mind was invincible, you know. Like, you know how kids are. They have a good head, you know. They really want to win. So I was feeling really good about myself. And so the third race came. I think I started from gate 4, and I was racing. I don't even know who I was racing against, to be honest with you. and I was racing, and I cut back, I raced, had a good first turn, I cut back, I was coming back into first place around the outside, and next thing I know, a rider on gate 3 or 2 come and punched me in the middle and took me out. My hand is caught in the back of the rear wheel, and it's spinning, and my hand's getting burned, my uniform's burned up, and my hand's in the back of the wheel, and my bike's crashing, and oh my gosh. And oh, I was so mad because here I was going for my third win, and the next thing I know, I'm on the ground, like wiped out. Some guy probably didn't like me, like, that young kid is not going to win this meet. And I don't know what happened. It just took me out. I mean, next thing I know, I was seeing stars, and my hand really hurt bad. And I couldn't restart. They did a restart, I think, and I couldn't ride the race. I thought I broke my arm. So that was kind of the end of my night. I had a perfect score, and then woof, everything went bad. You know, I didn't fall or nothing. This guy just punched me, and he literally, like, he crashed too. He just like wiped me out. So I went to the hospital. It was horrible, and I thought for sure it was a broken arm. I was in so much pain. I couldn't lift my arm. I never had it before, so I was like, this is a broken arm. It was horrible. And so I went to the Sacramento hospital. I was in this little room, and then next to me was this guy. He was an old timer, and he was coughing like, and I'm sitting there hearing this horrible coughing for like hours. And I said to the nurse, I said, what's wrong with that guy, that patient next to me? Because I was getting the x-rays for my arm, because I thought I needed a cast, actually. And the lady says, oh, he smoked cigarettes, and he's dying of cancer and stuff. And it was really terrible. He was like, and I'm like, oh, I'm hurting. And then I'm hearing this guy dying of smoking cigarettes and stuff. I'm like, oh. I had a bad night that night, you know, like at the end. And I said to myself that night, I will never smoke cigarettes. I'm not going to be involved, because that guy, he couldn't breathe. He had a painful death. And I'm sure he died like, you know, the next day or something. And I just, oh, God. And so the next day, actually, they had a race over at the Auburn Speedway track. This was the old Auburn. It wasn't the Fast Fridays. It was before Fast Fridays. And I couldn't ride. My arm was hurting. And I remembered, like, watching the movie on any Sunday, and they said, you know, you got to put on your race face, and you got to ride, you know, you got to ride hard. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I put on my uniform, my leathers, and I said, I'm going to race. I don't care. I had an arm that was destroyed. And I said, you know, I don't think I'm going to do very good, because I can't really ride the bike. And so the track was really horrible that night. It was really terrible. I mean, it was like full of holes and big ruts, you know, like a half a meter deep and stuff. I'm like, oh, because I like a nice smooth track where I can ride. And I was injured, so I probably couldn't ride anyways. But I went around and I rode like 4 laps, you know, just to be on the track, but I could not race. I was there as like just to be a rider on the program. I raced because I was on the program. I remember I didn't ride at all. I couldn't ride. I was like, my arm was killing me. I'm just like, oh. So I got like all last place finishes. I just went out there just to like be on the program. You know, like I was on the program. I wanted to fulfill my obligation, even though I was really hurt bad. And so that was kind of the ending of that night during the Auburn race. But going back to the Sacramento that night, something really tragic happened that kind of affected me for my Speedway career. And it shouldn't have affected me. As a Speedway rider, I was talking to Wilbur yesterday, you've got to just put all this stuff out of your mind, you know. Like, but as a 17-year-old boy, I didn't really, you know, have the preparation for that. And one of the heats, I was working on my bike before my crash, and that Bondo that was on the track that I had mentioned earlier, it actually caught was in one of the riders' back wheel. He was one of the Southern California, I was a Southern California rider, and he was one of the Southern California riders, and his name was Porky McCabe. Do you remember Porky McCabe? A lot of people remember his name, but they can't remember much about him. He was like a skinny, tall surfer guy. He was about 28 years old. I was about 17 or 18 at the time, about 10 years older. He was a good rider. I beat Porky pretty much every race the whole year, and he hated me. Like Porky really had a good Speedway heart. He's like me, he wanted to win, and I always like beat that guy's butt. And so he didn't like me very much but I didn't talk to him very much either. I was a young kid. He was an older rider at 28. That was kind of old man too. When you're 17 or 18 and you're 28 and you're racing, it's like old man. But he was good. Porky was like a legitimate Division I rider. He wasn't bad, but I just was a little bit better than Porky, and I never let Porky win. I think I beat him. I think every time. He might have me one time, but I don't remember that. I beat him. And I started back at the 60, 50-yard line, and I always like pass him. Porky really tried hard to beat me. He really hated me beating him, and I love beating Porky. So we kind of had that kind of thing going on, and I didn't like to lose to that guy, and I don't think I lost to him at all. And so he actually got in a horrible crash that night, and he was right outside. He wasn't really an outside rider, to be honest with you, that I remember, because he was always hogging the pole against me, so I remember that. And Porky was riding the outside at the Sacramento Fairgrounds the first night, Northern California, and then caught one of that Bondo on the track, and then next thing I heard, I was actually sitting near the crash, and then I heard like, boom, it was like this horrible boom, and I was like, what was that? It was this terrible noise. It was like a thud, like boom, and I was like, oh. I was sitting down kind of near the wall, and I stood up on my chair because I was resting. I think it was after I beat Bass, and I look up, and then there's ambulance and everything, and it was Porky. He went ahead and had a horrible crash, and I felt so terrible, even though we weren't best of friends. He was a Southern California rider, and I felt really horrible. He actually went into the crash wall head first. He hit the Bondo, got a lot of traction. He went to the crash wall head first, and the stupid promoter, they have one of those crash walls that like tore away. They had a railroad tie behind that wall. A railroad tie. That is horrible. And Porky, bad luck Porky, he hit the wall right where the railroad tie was, head first. So his head was there, and boom, right into the railroad tie. Oh! And he severed his spinal cord. Oh, no. So I had a very bad injury. I was just in pain. And then Porky had this massive injury. All the riders were at the hospital, but I was at the hospital too. I was in the intensive care being x-rayed for my shoulder or my arm. Porky had a horrible crash. They knew like immediately that Porky was going to be paralyzed for life. And I was like, oh, no. So, the whole night was a disaster from my crashing, and then Porky got paralyzed. That was it. There's no more racing for Porky for the rest of his life. It was really sad. It affected me. And I was telling Wilbur Hancock yesterday that you've got to forget these things and just focus on your racing, and not let these tragedies affect you, because these tragedies really are devastating sometimes in speed. People dying, getting put in the hospital, paralyzed. I mean, it's a rough sport. I mean, it's a radical sport I race, and a lot of you riders and spectators watch. It really has a dark side. It's really dangerous, and Porky got the experience of that, and it's really sad. I remember a few years later, I went to Porky's house. It was in La Mirada or something like that. And I went there, and I knocked on his door, And I said, like, I guess Porky came to the door, and I said, Porky, it's me, and I had a gift for him and stuff like that. And I said, I want to come in and talk to you, and I want to see what you're doing. And I was being sweet to Porky. And then Porky said, I don't want to talk to you. You go away. You caused me enough trouble. And I said, what? I didn't cause him no trouble. And he goes, I don't want to talk to you. I don't like you. I was like, I have a gift for you, Porky. And he goes, take your gift and shove it up your ass. And I was like, oh, no. And he slammed the door on my face. And I'm like, oh, no. Porky hated my guts. And I felt so bad because I was so sad, that this guy got injured. And it affected me mentally. Like, it kind of screwed me up a little bit. I had recouped from my injury. I brought Porky a present, and he slammed the door on my face, and he told me, like, get lost, I hate you. I was like, oh, no. So that was my experience with Porky. And then I think it was like a couple years later or something like that. It was like 1 or 2 years or 3 years later. I get the news from, I think, my friend, Ernie Rocio, but I'm not sure who it was. And they told me that Porky had died. He passed away. And I'm like, what? He's only like early 30s. The poor guy, had a bad experience and a bad, situation. I felt really bad for him. And they said that, I guess he was paralyzed from, I think, the neck down. So he like had no access to arms or anything from like the neck. He could just move his head. That's all. And then actually the caregiver, they put him in the wheelchair. And, when you're handicapped like that, you'll have no use or feeling of your legs. And they put his legs in the wheelchair, and the caregiver kind of pushed his legs back into the chair so that he would sit properly. But he had a little bolt thing sticking out, maybe two, I'm not sure. But they moved his legs back, and his legs went into the bolt. But since he was paralyzed, he couldn't feel anything. Like, he had no feeling in his leg because he was paralyzed, right? And so this bolt went to his leg. And then later, I guess the nurse or caregiver was bathing him or something. And then they saw like he had a lot of infection there on his leg because his leg got stuck in the bolt, and then nobody knew about it. And then he got gangrene. Do you know what gangrene is? It's a very serious thing that it actually affects your brain. It can kill you. And Porky passed away from gangrene and having that into his body, that screw or bolt that was into his body. So Porky had a really bad sort of situation and a bad demise, and all that stuff was really, really sad. So rest in peace, Porky. And I always cared for the guy, even though I liked to beat him and stuff, but I never had bad feelings for him as a little young kid. And I always, felt so sad for Porky McCabe. And I just, I would love to talk to his family or, get a chance to find out a little bit of, I'd love to do a blog on Porky McCabe because he was a cool guy as far as like, he really had a good heart. What I liked about Porky is he really wanted to win. And every time I beat, like, got mad at me. And I'm like, I like that guy because I like somebody who has a fire in their heart and stuff like that. Because I was kind of that way. I like to win. And I remember one time in like Northern California at Hanford Speedway. It was a Division II track when I was up and coming rider going before D1. There was a Speedway rider who was nasty to me. He was really nasty, and he always made trouble for me. And I'm like, what's up with you? Because a lot of good riders, they have people who jealous of them or hate them or whatever. I don't know. I never did that. I was just minding my business and just having a good time. I didn't worry about nobody. I worried about me. But anyways, this guy hassled me, and he was making trouble for me, and he made me mad. And I said, why are you like making trouble for me? He says, I'm going to beat you on the track. I'm going to beat your ass, and I'm going to take you down. And I got mad, and I said, really? You're going to take me down? And he goes, yeah, I'm going to take you down. You better watch out, because we were racing in like the first or second race. We were young, like before Division I. And I said, that guy is asking for trouble. I was mad. So the race started, and the guy was trying to pass me on the outside, and I just went right into him and hit him really hard, and he went flying into the wall, and he broke his leg. He broke his leg, and he was mad. He said, "I'm going to get you," and I go, "Not with a broken leg. You're not going to get me." I go, "Dude, don't ever tell me, don't ever threaten me, and then race against me because I will break your leg. I'll take you out, dude." And I was mad, the guy was a jerk, and I broke his leg. I was kind of a mean guy, when I was young. I feel embarrassed. That's why I'm laughing, because it's not nice to do that. But I didn't care. Like, if I didn't do that like normally, but if somebody's gonna like threaten me and say they're gonna hurt me or something, I will, get you. And I got that guy. So that was a story. But getting back to the races here, getting back to the races. And anyways, the next day, like we had to drive home, like from Northern California. I lived in Orange County, Southern California, and I drove alone in my van because I didn't have anybody to go with me at the time because it was a far race in Northern California. It took me like 12 hours to drive there. It's a long drive. I almost fall asleep going there. I was so tired. And on the way home, this guy, his name is Dunbar. He asked me, he said, "Hey, Brian, you're hurt, and you want me to drive your van home for you?" Because I was alone. I had nobody with me. And I said, "Yeah." So he went ahead and drove me home from Sacramento or whatever, Auburn, all the way home in my van. I couldn't even drive my van. I was hurt so bad. It was bad injury. So thank you, Dunbar, and for that ride home. I think he's around somewhere. He has that son named, I think, Shane Dunbar. He raced the junior speedway a little bit, and but he's not riding anymore. But that was cool that he told me that story a few years later. I said, "Oh, I remember that guy." So I forgot all about it until he told me, because I rode you home and you got injured, and I said, "Oh yeah, I forgot," because I couldn't remember that and learn about it. But anyways, so he gave me a ride home, and then I used to, like I said, I used to visit Porky all the time, and then before he passed away, and then even though I had a lot of good races, during that time, that night really affected me. Like, it was like the worst sort of experience ever. Like, here I was, I thought I was going to win that night, the World Championship qualifier in Sacramento. I really thought so, seriously. I know people laughing, but I was going to win that thing, I was going to win. I don't care what you say, I'm a wet sucker. And then I got crashed, and then I was done. I couldn't even drive home. So I was so mad, like, I was so depressed. I couldn't get that out of my mind. And I really wanted to race in England because, John Cook was going to England the next year. Denny Pyatt was going to England. Bobby Schwartz was going to England. I think Bruce Penhall had just gone to England. The Moran brothers were going to England. Everybody was going in. Larry Costa went to England. Everybody was going to England. And I'm like, I want to go to England. I know I can compete with those guys. I was developing, so I had, more growth to do. I wasn't perfect by any means, but I knew like I could go with these guys, and I could like maybe get better and better with these guys. And I had a stepfather, I guess you could say, and his name was Johnny Rocio. And Johnny was like my advisor at the time, and his brother, Ernie Rocio, died in 1952, like I mentioned, with a Speedway accident. And he was a star rider, Ernie, and Johnny was a brother combination team. Johnny and Ernie, both brother combination teams. And Ernie was like the captain of Team America back in '51. He raced, and he was the first guy to race in the World Championship since the late great Jack Milne. So it went Jack Milne in 1937, and then it went all the way to 1951. Was the next American Speedway rider, and that was Ernie Rocio. So Ernie Rocio has a place in American Speedway history. And I was like with those guys, I was on their team, I guess. They were helping me and everything. And Ernie's I don't know what his cousin or whatever, I don't know, nephew, I guess a nephew, I don't know these things, but his nephew was my best friend while I was a young up-and-coming Speedway rider named Ernie Rocio. So that was cool, and I got to ride with the nephew Ernie, and I used to go out all the time at like Lake Elsinore, and do you know Lake Elsinore Speedway every weekend? I had to get good when I was like developing, so I'd go practice every week at Lake Elsinore. And Jerry Fairchild, he built this first laydown Speedway JAP for the Speedway rider Ernie Rocio back in 1945 or something. And so this old JAP Speedway bike, it was the first laydown ever. Jerry Fairchild actually invented the first laydown bike. All the Speedway bikes nowadays are what? Laydown Speedway engines. And Jerry Fairchild, he was teaching me about how the piston moves forward and backwards and pushes you forward, pushes you. And then, but the piston in the stand-up upright goes up and down, and it's slower. It's a slower engine. So if you have the piston going this way, your bike is moving forward, and you're getting a lot of thrust and momentum as you're riding. So that's Jerry Fairchild, my tuner, invented the lay-down motorcycle. And about 40 years later, everybody had the lay-down Speedway engine. That was cool. So I always, every time I worked on my bike at Jerry's shop, I would look over, and there was this old 1945 JAP lay-down Speedway bike. It was blue. And I say to Jerry, what the world is that? I thought it was crazy. And he goes, yeah, that's the first lay-down Speedway bike. I invented that. And I said, you're crazy, guy. And I said, it doesn't even run. And he goes, it's the wave of the future. All the Speedway bikes are going to be lay-down one day. You watch, Brian. And I said, Jerry, you're like nuts. You're like a madman. And he said, you're not smart, Brian. And I am not smart. I'm not a mechanic, okay? I'm a rider. I don't really do very good with twisting the nuts and bolts, but I used to ride a little bit. So anyways, he was right. The lay-down engine was the wave of the future, and it's really amazing. So Jerry Fairchild was right, and I used to see that bike all the time, and then I would go practicing with my friend Ernie Rocio, and Ernie would bring his old lady. Actually, it was his uncle's lay down JP in my van all the time, and it used to be. And I used to go taking him to Lake Elsinore, and I tried that JP one time. I actually rode it, the first lay down JP, first lay down motorcycle ever, and I rode it at Lake Elsinore, and it was horrible. Like I couldn't ride that thing. I was like, oh, this thing. It was not set up for me. I was like, take this piece of crap, I can't ride it. So I rode that bike. I rode the first lay-down JAP, and I didn't like it very much. I didn't figure how guys could win on that thing, because even though the science was good, the bike wasn't set up for me. So but I love JAPs, and like I say, I was probably the last Division I fast JAP rider, and then no more. I think no more. So in America, I don't know about Europe. Maybe there's somebody else in Europe. In America, as far as I know, I was the last Division I JAP rider, and I loved my JAP. It was fast, long stroke, fast. That thing was a chugga 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 chugga. Wow! I liked it. Actually, in 2006, I bought a short stroke Jawa. And it was pretty good. I won a couple of these main events here at Costa Mesa from that in the support division and stuff. But it was good. It was nice. It was fast. But I missed that long stroke. I think if I bought another Speedway bike, I needed a long stroke because they really like chugga chugga chugga. It is cool. The long stroke. I'm a long stroke lover. The short stroke it's nice. It's fast. It's good. But the long stroke is like chugga, 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 chugga. It's good. I like the long stroke, so I'm a long stroke lover. And I rode short strokes, and they're all right too. They're fast. So, anyways, so let's get out of here. so anyways, Johnny Rocio, I had talked to Johnny, and I used to go to parties over the Rocios all the time. And they were best friends with like Ivan Major and Barry Briggs and all these European stars, you know. I could name, you know, Zenon Plek and Yari Stancil and all these like old European riders, really good. They're all like superstar riders, you know, top level championship riders. And I used to go to like Halloween parties and all these like parties there they'd have for all these when the Europeans were in town and stuff. And I was really excited. I said to my God, these guys are gonna. And then Johnny says, "Do you want me to get you a ride in Europe? I can get you because he knows everybody. He knows, you know, Ivan and all these guys." I go, "Yeah, give me a ride in Europe." And so, anyways, he didn't do that. And so I went up to Johnny and I said, "Hey, Johnny, like, did you talk to Ivan and Barry? You know, like, I want to go to England. I want to race Speedway." And then he said, "No, Brian, I didn't do that." And I said, "Why, Johnny?" Like, because Johnny, like, he was one of my fans and liked watching me race. He'd go watch the races a lot. And then he said, "I really don't want you to race in England." And I said, "Why? Why? I wanted to race." And he says, "No," he says, "I just don't want you to race." And then he didn't help me. He didn't help me. And then later, I was studying like the life of Ernie Rocio when I was blogging and stuff. And I guess when his brother Ernie died, Johnny was there racing in England too. He wasn't as good as Ernie because Ernie was like the top rider, but Johnny was a good rider, of course. And I guess it blew his mind when his brother passed away, and Johnny just quit Speedway like cold turkey. He never went on a Speedway bike again. It totally like they brought Ernie's body home. They buried him in California, and it just like destroyed Johnny's attitude towards Speedway to ride. So when I was trying to get Johnny to help me, he said he would, but maybe he thought about it, and then he wouldn't help me. And later I studied and found out on my own, not him, but that he just like it just like affected him, and so the people that I was waiting to help me to go to Europe, they didn't help. So I ended up not, you know, going. And one of the things is just go ahead and you know, just race in Europe. And Denny Pyatt wanted to race in Europe, and then he went ahead and, you know, he got killed a couple of years on the Speedway bike, and that was really bad. And I talked to Costa the other day, and he told me that affected him a lot, and he was racing for the Aces in Europe on the British League. Larry was a good rider. We're good friends. I won Larry with this cup right here. See that cup right there? And that was one of my cups. His dad bought that cup and at one of the Speedway tracks. It was a match race championship. We'll talk about that later. But Larry was a good rider, and he placed third in the United States Nationals one year, and he was just an awesome rider. Larry's solid and smooth. He was really safe. You know, when you're racing with Larry, he wouldn't crash you. You know, like he would ride real smooth. Even though he wanted to win, he wouldn't like hit you like I hit guys sometimes. But Larry didn't do that. He was a pretty solid rider. And Larry said that after Denny Pyatt's death, that it really affected him, and he lost his drive, his desire, his thing, you know, his ambition, and he packed it in, you know, like it just affected. And I wasn't racing at that time, but it definitely affected me also. And, you know, it's just really sad and everything. And so that was kind of how that worked out. And then I raced like in the 90s. I was married at the time, and my wife, I never told my wife that I was a Speedway rider. And we were watching the Speedway America on TV. We were watching McConnell and Brad Oxley and all these things. I think Brad Oxley won that event. And I'm sitting there like coming home from work going, I used to race Speedway. I raced that sport before. And my wife at the time, she's no longer my wife, and she turned around and she said, like, "You're a liar, you're a joker." And I go, "No, I used to race the Speedway, and I used to race the Brad Oxley and these guys." And she's laughing at me, calling me a liar and stuff. I didn't tell her that I was a racer. I didn't talk about it very much. And I said, no, I used to compete against those guys. I did really well. I never showed her the trophies or nothing. And then she told me that she called me a liar. And I said, no, I can get a Speedway bike and I can show you. I can ride. So she laughed. And then I saved my money quickly. And then I bought a Speedway bike from Brent Warner. Do you know Brent Warner? I bought a old Westlake from Brent Warner back in the Westlake days in the 90s. And I start racing like all the tracks, Costa Mesa, San Bernardino, Paris. And I lived in the city of Paris at the time. And I think it was Scott was the announcer. I can't remember. And so anyways, I ended up, was like a Division II rider. And then I ended up working my way. I was making a lot of money. I was making like $500 a night back in the 90s because I had all these sponsors and they paid me when I win a main event. And so I was making money, and then they had money in the stands. They had like a raffle, like a 50-50 thing, and half the money went to the riders or something. So I was making money from that, and I had sponsors paying me. Every time I won a main event in D2, I would get like money from all my sponsors. So it was a lot of money. I was making like more than $500 a night. So that was pretty cool. So in the Philippines, it's like 25,000 pesos in just 2 hours. So I was cleaning up, and then they put me in D1 in the 90s, and then I was racing all the fast guys, and then I wasn't making all that money no more. Because I wasn't winning like I was winning before. And I actually had some good races in D1, and I raced all the good riders, and I beat a few of them too. So I had some good rides, but still I didn't make the money. So I was like, hey, take me down to D2. I want to make money. I'm not making no money in D1 because those guys are good. So I went ahead and I raced mostly I raced D2. I told even at Costa Mesa, they put me at D1, and I said, I want to go to D2 because I want to make lots of money, because I was making a lot of money because of sponsorships. And every time I won a main event, Torco Oil would pay me money, and my sponsors would all pay. I would be getting money from everywhere. So I was making a lot of money. So I liked that one. So I was doing well. And then I ended up stopped racing after a while. And then I came back in the 2005 for 4 more seasons. I was the Bumblebee. See my Bumblebee uniform? I was racing there. I raced a few D1 rides, and I raced mostly support. And I was getting kind of older guy. I was very heavy at the time. I didn't know how I rode a speed. People said, "Oh, he's so big. How does he ride a Speedway bike?" And Bruce Flanders is calling me a football player out there and stuff because I'm a big dude. I'm a big guy. So I still have fun. Actually, the last time I was racing from 4 years, from 2005 on, I had the best time of my life racing Speedway, and I wasn't like as good as I was when I was a teenager, to be honest with you, but I had a lot of fun. And I did the Bumblebee thing, and lots of people really liked it so much, and so that was cool. And so I want to ride again next time. If we go to Costa Mesa, that would be really cool, and get on a bike and ride. I don't know how I'll do. I hate to lose still. Like, once you're a racer, you always have that in your heart, but I race for fun, and I don't care, if I win, if I lose, whatever, but I like to win. And, I haven't practiced for a long time, so the odds are, I miss practice. I'd love to practice again, but, I was back a few years ago with no practice, and I just went out and rode. And I guess once you learn to ride a Speedway bike, it's like riding a bicycle. You just go back and you can ride it again, just get the cobwebs off, and you can shake off the dust and then ride it again. So that's cool. So hopefully we'll do that again, and see what happens. But I had a good time racing Speedway, and the Bumblebee thing was really great. I met a lot of nice fans and had a good time. I won a few races. There's a few trophies back there from that time, and it was a lot of fun. And I miss the people, the spectators, the riders, everybody. It was a lot of fun. I don't know if everybody liked me. One of the D1 riders, I won't tell you his name, he didn't like me. He said, Brian, I don't like you. And I said, why? Everybody likes the Bumblebee, right? And he goes, no, I don't like you. And I said, why? And he said, Well, because everybody likes you, and I'm a better writer than you, and I don't get the popularity, the notoriety as you do. And I said, well, you got to be the bumblebee, right? He said, I don't like you. I don't like you, because he was a good writer. I won't say names because that's not nice. But anyway, so not everybody liked the bumblebee, but I liked all the people, and I had fun, and I enjoyed the races. It was really great and stuff. So it was, I just had so much fun. I had more fun at the end than I did actually when I was a young whippersnapper, because all I wanted to do was win, and I was like focused. But when I got older, I liked the win too. So actually, that attitude never changed. So it was a lot of fun, and I like the show because I like to promote Speedway, and I have a love for always in my heart. It's really good, and it's just been a really fun sport. I've had some injuries. I've had some bad, injuries that hurt a lot, and I've had great, memories of winning, championships and main events. It's really great. So, you have the good with the bad. So the main thing is stay focused as you're young, and then just go ahead and focus on your dreams and your goals, because why you only live one time, and you're only young one time. So I ended up kind of getting out of Speedway for those reasons when I was young, and I kind of wish I didn't, but I went to college and I was able to work and have a successful life, and I'm healthy. I'm very healthy, so I have a great life, and I'm at one of the best beaches in the world, tropical beaches, and I have a I love life so much. So it worked out really great for me, and I'm so happy. And I love Speedway, and I love giving back to the sport. So thank you so much for joining us tonight. And I told you stories about the 1978 World Qualifier. Oh, that's not it. That's it, but that's not it. And on the cover of the World Qualifier, go check that out. I was on the cover of the World Qualifier. That was amazing. So that was a lot of fun, and I had some good times, and I have no regrets. Speedway is awesome, and hopefully we're gonna get this live stream thing working. We're bringing lots of people on the show, and we're gonna have a good time. So thank you so much, and we have some great riders coming up, some legends, some world championships, some United States champions. We have some really great people coming. So thank you so much for joining us. Like the show if you like it, and join us again. And if you want to subscribe, that would be great, because we're going to do a lot of shows. It's going to be a lot of fun. So thanks so much for joining us tonight in the Hive, and we'll talk again next time. Have a great one. Take care.